Welcome to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Brecheen.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Sports Scouting Report with Lee Brecheen. Hope everybody's having a great Monday and hope everybody had a great weekend. We're going to have a great show today. We're going to have our college notes, which is going to be LSU heavy. We're going to have a recruit of the week out of East Ascension High School, Jerrell Boykins, a good big-time defensive end. We're going to have a recruiting segment. We're going to also have some stuff on TCU. That's right, Texas Christian in Fort Worth. They have tons of Louisiana natives on their team. I'll talk about the players. And if we have time, we're going to talk about kickers. That's right, kickers, what it's like to get a scholarship in college as a kicker. What do you have to do? We're going to go ahead and go into our first segment here. And I'm going to go ahead and go with our recruit of the week. Let's go ahead and get into that. Our recruit of the week is Jerrell Boykins out of East Ascension High School. Jerrell is 6'4", 280 pounds. Had a chance to see Jerrell play as a sophomore in 2018 when he came on. He was about 6'3", about 265. People, you know, there's these rankings in this recruiting world of camps and yada, 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 but, you know, just there are a lot of good football players in Louisiana that are not ranked, and they should be. And I don't know, maybe these camps, there's too much of an emphasis put on like the NFL Combine, and the NFL Combine's not always right too, because just because you test well and everything doesn't mean you're a good football player. Yeah, I said it. It doesn't mean you're a good football player. But Jerrell Boykins is a football player that looks the part and can move, and he's mean and he's quick. He checks all the boxes to me. He's a diamond in the rough. I don't even know why he would be a diamond in the rough, because he's 6'4" now, about 280, and can move. He's been offered by McNeese State. That was his first offer. He's also been offered by Kansas, Southeastern, and Hammond, Texas State. Texas A&M is recruiting him. Jerrell Boykins is a guy that, you know, I don't know, that people say, oh, he needs a great senior year to get a scholarship. I think he had a great junior year back in 2019. They just need to, you know, keep a watch on this kid. A lot of the big schools, including LSU. And, you know, he's going to be a guy that's going to be hard to keep out of your signing class. He runs a 4.79, 4.8 40. He could play DN in college. He could grow into a D tackle and be 300 and run a 5 flat. But Jerrell Boykins, again, I've seen this kid as a sophomore. He's long. He's got a lean frame for a guy 280, 6'4". He carries his weight really well. He's a really good football player. And, you know, he's not a stiff guy. When I say that, he's not a big guy that has a trouble moving around in pads. I mean, he's a very good athlete. Jerrell Boykins, that's our recruit of the week from East Ascension High School. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we're going to have our college football notes.
Great news, Louisiana Football Magazine fans. We have renovated our website. So make sure to go to lafootballmagazine.com in order to check out our podcasts, learn more about our parent consultant, read profiles on recruits and coaches around the state of Louisiana, and finally, also start to pre-order your Louisiana Football Magazine copy, North or South version for this upcoming season. Finally, check out our article this week on Oak Grove tight end Dalton Allen. So if you want to get your recruiting fix, go to lafootballmagazine.com today.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. Be sure to download our shows. If you're a fan of the show, we're trying to hit a certain number of downloads, because that's what these businesses want to see. I mean, we've got a few thousand listeners, but we need more of our listeners to download the show, so that can be proven stats, so we can grow. We can grow this thing into something special. We also want everybody to, if you're parents or coaches now, send in information on your high school kids to our website, lafootballmagazine.com. If you think they're strong in the weight room, and tell us what they bench, what they squat in the max, and what they clean. It could be power clean, clean and jerk, any of those cleans. And if you're a coach listening, again, or a parent, weeks, we want to go ahead and announce the strongest football players in Louisiana, but we want to make sure we get everybody. Now, we've interviewed a lot of high school coaches in the state. Not everybody yet, but a lot of them. And we still need to get information from some kids. I know that we don't want to miss anybody when we talk about the strongest high school football players in Louisiana, pound for pound, whether you're a big guy, a small guy, or medium guy. What is your max in the bench? What's your max in the squad, in the clean, or anything that's super relative that would be a great story to talk about. Some kids that we have can bench or clean twice their weight, which is super impressive. Let's go ahead and go into our college notes. I love this segment, man, keeping up with college football, even though there's no practices going on and really things are just starting to open up just a little bit. There's a lot of positives. But let's go into our first thing. Dante Starks was kicked off the LSU football team recently, the redshirt freshman linebacker from John Ehret, who I had a chance to see play. He was super fast, had a lot of talent, was a true, legit outside linebacker. That's really his position. He was about 6'1", maybe, about 6'1.5", about 220, and ran a 4.5 40. He's no longer at LSU, and what I wanted to bring up is I hope this young man can make something of his life and get a second chance. Everybody that's 18 and 19 at one time or 20 or in your mid-20s, we make mistakes. Where everybody makes bad choices. And regardless of what the suspension was for, right? And he came out and said it was academics. You need a second chance. I don't want to see this kid not follow through with his God-gifted talents that God gave him, and hopefully he'll get a second chance and go somewhere and learn from this. Because, look, I've seen too many talented football players not make it at LSU because of suspensions. And I've seen guys go off and do great. And for our listeners, I thought I would throw this out from names from the past, from suspensions and kids that were no longer, at LSU and they had to leave or transfer. But, every coach at LSU has had to get rid of a young man that just did something that was, detrimental to the team, or it was academics or whatever. And you want to see, again, everybody do well. But if you go back to the memory bank, LSU fans, one of the first players I can remember that was kicked off the team and transferred was Stan Humphries, a quarterback from Southwood. And he made he really did great in his second opportunity. He went to Northeast in Monroe and was one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever go to Northeast. And Stan Humphries played in the Super Bowl as the quarterback for the San Diego Chargers. This is way back before Drew Brees, right after Dan Fouts, basically. And then remember Craig Nall. Craig Nall was suspended and chose to leave LSU. And had a great career at Northwestern State as a quarterback from Ash High School, Alexandria High School. Again, there's great stories of young men that did right the second opportunity. And then there's others that didn't do really well. Cecil Collins had been kicked off LSU's team, one of the greatest I'd ever seen. Got a second opportunity at McNeese and got in trouble again. I know he's doing good now. The same thing with a guy named Sean King. Now, a lot of listeners are not going to know what the name Sean King was, but I think he was one of the greatest football players to ever come out of West Monroe High School. Sean was 6'5", about 250, ran a 4.5 40, and was a defensive end. I thought he was a first-round draft pick for the NFL. Got into some trouble at LSU, was kicked off the team, and it just never happened. Transferred somewhere, and I know he's doing great now. But again, Sean King, Tim Pope was an All-American linebacker out of Florida under Nick Saban, and got into trouble and was kicked off the team. Tim Pope was going to be an All-American. There was Tyrone Malone back when Mike Archer was coach at LSU out of Texas. Tyrone was like 6'4", 240, ran a 4.5. And transferred to Texas A&M and actually played against LSU, and he did okay. Never hit the All-American status, but again, the kid got his degree at Texas A&M. And then recently, D. Anderson, was suspended, and now he's at Oklahoma State. He's got a second chance. Kelvin Joseph, last year from Scotlandville. I think the world of Kelvin his talent's phenomenal. Just, I don't know. Sometimes it's maturity. Sometimes it's pressure. And sometimes just being young. We all made mistakes at 18, 19, 20, 21. Like I said, you can go all the way to your mid-20s. But it's not going to end. There's going to be somebody else, unfortunately, in the future. It's just part of life, and it happens. They're kids. They're not adults. But I wish Dante Starks the best. I hope he can do great on a second opportunity. And it'll probably be at a 1AA school, or he can go to a junior college and be re-recruited again at Last Chance U or something like that. So other college notes. Speaking of former LSU players, former kicker Connor Culp, who's from Arizona, received his degree and has transferred to Nebraska to compete for the starting kicking position at Nebraska. Look, Connor Culp was not a bad kicker. He just didn't get a long time to audition. And it's just when you're a kicker and you don't do great your first 5 opportunities, you might not get the second chance. And he never got that second chance to be the starting kicker at LSU. And he has a cannon leg. He can kick them 50 yards, and he just wasn't ready to kick as a true freshman when they signed him. He was a scholarship player out of Arizona. And, he might, on the second go-around, now that he's an older kid, he might end up being a really great kicker at Nebraska. And we talked about Kentucky transfer Amani Gilmore from Amite. He picked a home going to North Texas. We'll have to sit out in Denton. I think it's a perfect fit for Amani Gilmore, quarterback from Amite, going to North Texas, which has really an enrollment of 40,000 kids. Nobody would really figure that out unless you go look at it. And I think it might even be more than 40. But, the small Texas schools that are D1 are 90% bigger in enrollment than some of our D1s in Louisiana. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, I'm going to talk recruiting a little bit and how LSU lost a good player verbally, Kaine Williams, John Ehret High School, to Alabama. We'll be right back.
Parents, are you looking for advice on getting your high school athlete recruited by the right college? Lee Brecheen is your answer. Lee has been doing it for over 30 years. He knows the ropes, and more importantly, he knows the people. Lee offers turnkey service from evaluation, creating highlight tapes in the correct format, and complete guidelines for effective communication with the schools. No matter the sport, girl or boy, no matter what grade your child is in, let Lee Brecheen help match your child to the right college fit. Go to our website, lafootballmagazine.com, and get connected today.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Lee Brecheen, the Sports Scouting Report. Hope everybody's having a great day. Hope you're enjoying the show. Again, download the show if you can and like it and all that good stuff. All I am is the host and the creator and the ideas. And, Jace Lejeune has had some ideas on our topics. And we want to grow this to be where it'll just expand. It'll possibly be video and audio at some point. But to do that, we have to have more downloads. We've got to have more stats. And I know we have more listeners than stats, so please, people that are listening, download a show, which is free to do, and that'll allow us to get to our goal, and we hope to hit that in the next month, in the next 4 weeks. I want to go ahead and go into recruiting. Our recruiting topic is going to be Kaine Williams, who is a free safety from John Ehret High School, going to be a senior for 2021 class. But I want to share this with my listeners. And, I've been following recruiting and evaluating and recruiting, and I'm working for colleges since 91. I've seen some great players, and I'm going to be honest on this. This is not I don't do emotional answers. I just give honesty to the listeners. Kaine Williams is, to me, the best player coming back in Louisiana for the class of 2021, and it's not even close. I put Kaine Williams in the conversation with LaRon Landry, Craig Stelz, Grant Delpit, all these great safeties that LSU signed, but I think he's way more advanced than Grant Delpit. Kaine Williams I watched 2 years ago in person, and this is very rare, especially in 5A ball or 4A ball, but I was at Hahnville High School 2 years ago, and I'm on the sidelines, and I'm there to see Dante Starks. I'm there to see some of these other big-time, Earl Barquette, who's at TCU now, D lineman. I'm there to see some other players on their defense. And I see this sophomore free safety, that's 6'2", about 185, just dominate the game. And I'm talking about the games at Hahnville's got a very good team. They got a huge O-line, great football players. And I see this sophomore making tackles, and watching Kaine Williams play as a sophomore, I was memorized. I mean, I was like, this is the next great safety from Louisiana. And not just the best safety in the 221 class. I think he's the best safety to come out of Louisiana in about 3 years. He committed to Alabama recently. I don't think that's over. But I think this is an important recruit that Ed Orgeron gets back in the LSU class. Looks like there's some confusion on evaluation on some of these websites. It doesn't sound like they've watched him in games, because this kid is not outgrowing safety. Not a good way to look at him. At 205, 200 pounds, he's actually very, very fluid still. But I don't think the comparison is doing this kid right. It sounds like they haven't seen him play in a game. But could he grow into a linebacker? Yes. Is he good at 205, 210, 6'2" as a safety? Yes. Is he Hootie Jones? No. No, Hootie was a great player at Neville, but he was not. I never thought Hootie was instinctive. He looked the part, but not instinctive. Look, Hootie was one of the smartest kids you'd ever meet, who signed with Alabama out of Neville. Kaine is a guy he'll knock your helmet off. I mean, this guy is super aggressive, super instinctive. He's a football player with all the God gifts. And again, it's very important that LSU gets this kid back into the class, or get him into the LSU class, because this is the kid that goes to Alabama and makes All-American. This is a kid that will play in the NFL and be a starter and possibly a Pro Bowler. He's got that kind of talent. I'm telling you, people, because I saw him play firsthand in person. And I saw this 2 years ago. If I'm not a star system person, but if you want to give him a star system, he'd be a 5 easily. But again, I don't think anybody's seen this kid play in person besides maybe some highlight tapes or some camps, from what I'm reading. But Kaine Williams is a super talent. And it is a verbal commitment. I just want LSU fans to know he's not a project at all. And I'm just shooting you straight up, man, from just watching him play and seeing kids play. But he's the number one player in the state to me. Now, I saw everybody play in Louisiana last year, so I feel like I can make that opinion. I've seen him in games, not in camps, in games, in full pads. And, John Ehret's had some good players for LSU. Jerrell Williams was a good player for LSU. Lamine Barrow, linebacker, was a very good player for LSU recently. Michael Divinity. It didn't work out with Donte Starks, but again, Kaine Williams, he's an intimidator, man. This guy is phenomenal as a safety. He's polished. He's polished. He's not a project. So we'll see what happens there. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When I come back, we're going to talk about kickers. And if dads are listening, and obviously high school coaches or college coaches, I think they'll agree with me on assessment of what does it take to be a college kicker and what level, D1, 1AA, D2, D3, what do you need to have in your toolbox to be able to go to college to be a kicker? We'll be right back.
Great news, Louisiana Football Magazine fans. We have renovated our website. So make sure to go to lafootballmagazine.com in order to check out our podcasts, learn more about a parent consultant, read profiles on recruits and coaches around the state of Louisiana, and finally, also start your pre-order your Louisiana Football Magazine copy, North or South version for this upcoming season. Finally, check out our article this week on Oak Grove tight end Dalton Allen. So if you want to get your recruiting fix, go to lafootballmagazine.com today.
Welcome back, everyone. Hope everybody's having a great day today. Lee Brecheen, the Sports Scouting Report. Be sure you download one of our shows. Again, that we're on this campaign drive. I hate to even say it, but it's what we need. You know, we need this because what the world's about today, and especially the podcast world or the internet or all that stuff. You need all the downloads that you can have to grow your show. That's what I've learned in a short time. We're going to go ahead and talk about kickers, but before we talk about kickers in high school to get college scholarships, I want to mention something that just for people that are big fans of information. LSU's taken a lot of heat about quarterbacks prior to Joe Burrow, and I think a lot of it was just not really as bad as it was put, in the perception. It got so bad that the media was so down on LSU about the quarterbacks. You would think no one's ever come out of Louisiana or LSU that was a great quarterback. That was all nonsense. There was that 6-year period of Les Miles where the offense just didn't work, right? And they based it on 30 years. Well, that, come on. Here's a reason to that theory's wrong. LSU is tied with USC for the last 20 years for the most quarterbacks drafted in the NFL with 8. Case closed. And what's interesting, I don't know why, but just people get on a topic and they just pick on something so much, and then it becomes national, and then it perception, and it just hurts. It hurts recruiting. But now that Burrow won the Heisman, that perception is LSU's got great quarterbacks. And let me just give you an idea. I did some research, which I think our listeners would find very interesting. We might end up having to take a break and go on to our kickers next segment. We'll do that. But, look at the Florida Gators. Florida University's had some of the best quarterback play in the nation the last 20 years, okay? But from a success standpoint in the NFL, not college, but in the NFL, not one Florida quarterback is going to be in the Hall of Fame based off his play in the NFL the last 20 years. And very few of the quarterbacks that played at Florida are mentioned as some of the great quarterbacks in the NFL. Example, they've had 3 Heisman Trophy winners at Florida. 3. Steve Spurrier, Tim Tebow, and Danny Werfel. Tim Tebow and Danny Werfel, neither one of those guys made 4 years in the NFL each, where they started more than 3 years each. Steve Spurrier was not a great NFL quarterback. So all 3 Heisman Trophy winners will never be in the Canton, Ohio Pro Football Hall of Fame. And that's just an example of perception, okay? And if you look at other past quarterbacks at Florida, Rex Grossman, right, who beat out Brock Berlin from Evangel, who's one of the greatest ever from Louisiana. Rex Grossman did not have a great pro career. Kerwin Bell, who was a great quarterback under the other, former coach Galen Hall, did not have a great pro career. Shane Matthews did not have a great pro career, was a great quarterback under Spurrier. And think of this. Technically, Florida's had 4 Heisman Trophy quarterbacks. Cam Newton's like a half a Gator, right? Because he transferred to Auburn. So, what a recruiting job Urban Meyer and Dan Mullen, though, with quarterbacks, right? 4 quarterbacks that won the Heisman Trophy that they recruited, and 2 at Ohio State that came close to winning it. But I just wanted to throw that out there. The perception will just kill things. We're actually going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about kickers and what do you need to be a college scholarship kicker And for what I've learned the last 30 years doing recruiting and working, I've worked with a bunch of kickers for highlight tapes that were under the radar over the years and helped them get scholarships to colleges by sending tape out. We'll be right back.
Parents, are you looking for advice on getting your high school athlete recruited by the right college? Lee Brecheen is your answer. Lee has been doing it for over 30 years. He knows the ropes, and more importantly, he knows the people. Lee offers turnkey service from evaluation, creating highlight tapes in the correct format, and complete guidelines for effective communication with the schools. No matter the sport, girl or boy, no matter what grade your child is in, let Lee Brecheen help match your child to the right college fit. Go to our website, lafootballmagazine.com, and get connected today.
Welcome back. You're listening to Lee Brecheen, the Sports Scouting Report. If you're a coach listening or a parent, be sure to send us the maxes on bench, squat, and cleans. If you got any players that are super strong, especially if you have anybody that can lift twice their body weight. Because in 3 weeks, we're going to talk about the strongest players in the state, what high school they go to, what do they lift, and how much they weigh. And it's very remarkable, some of the kids, what they can lift in high school in the bench, squat, and clean, or other stuff they can lift. But we're going to go ahead and continue. Our segment is on kickers, high school kickers, and what do you need to go to college. You know, it's really hard to get a scholarship out of high school as a kicker. And the reason is, and you know, coaches know this that are listening to this, and a lot of people that are listening know this, but there's a lot of parents that don't. There's only, you know, a lot of your small D1 schools, you know, outside of the Power 5 conferences, they usually only have one kicker on scholarship. And it's the only position on the team besides punter and maybe long snapper where there's only one scholarship player on the whole team. And so there's 85 scholarships on the team in college football. One goes to a kicker on the usually. Some D1 schools will have two kickers on scholarship. They don't like that, but some do. The big schools do sometimes. But when you're looking at it from that standpoint, your chances of getting a scholarship are slim. And when you look at Louisiana, let's just take Louisiana. If Louisiana has 150 D1 prospects, you know, which is what I think they have every year. Sometimes they have 200. Grades get a lot of kids, and it gets it back down to about 110. There's usually only one kicker in the whole group that'll get a D1 scholarship when it's said and done. And there's usually about 7 or 8 kickers that come out every year who I think can kick D1. And so if you're a kicker, you're probably going to have to walk on. Don't get angry. Just understand that's just the law of averages all over the country. That's how it works everywhere. And so what colleges do, like LSU, like Oklahoma, Texas, USC, you know, Notre Dame, all these schools, they'll go recruit a kicker to be a walk-on that has the stuff, and you just show up, walk on, and prove it. And if you prove it, you'll get a scholarship within a year or two. And if you're doing really well, then you can beat out someone that did sign for a scholarship or someone that's about to graduate that did sign for a scholarship. You know, there's been several kickers at LSU and ULL and Louisiana Tech that walked onto the program and had great careers and ended up getting scholarships. But to be recruited and be that one kicker that comes out every year and gets that one scholarship, and sometimes none. Sometimes no kickers get a scholarship in a class. I'm talking about Louisiana. You have to have the leg, and I'm talking about D1 schools. But to get a D1 scholarship and to be that one guy or just that one every 2 or 3 year guy, you better have a strong leg. You better be able to hit field goals to 50 yards. You better be consistent in high school. And you better be able to kick under pressure with fans, because college is going to be more fans, more pressure. That's a big part of the kicking game. You better be able to kick off and hit the end zone consistently. And you better be able to have an onside kick. You can work on that in college, but it's good to have all of the things I just mentioned. Because what they want to do, they want to sign a kicker that can do it all and just get better in college. They don't want to have to teach a kicker to be a kicker in college. They want that kicker to have basically most of what you need. Now, you can get a scholarship to a 1AA college by just having a strong, consistent leg and maybe not be able to kick off and hit the end zone. Preferably, they like somebody, though, at the 1AA level that can kick off and kick because they're only on one scholarship guy, And the small D1 schools, the same thing. They usually like the same kid to kick off that's kicking the field goals. Now, at LSU, you'll notice there's a kickoff kicker and then there's a field goal kicker. And sometimes the person kicking off is not on scholarship. And sometimes the person kicking the field goal, that's the guy like Cade York at LSU. He's on scholarship, but there's other kickers in camp that'll compete against him. If he doesn't do great and hits a rut, then he could get beaten out at any time by a walk-on kicker that's got D1 stuff. But I hope that gives information to parents that have kids that are kickers or kickers coming up. The more advanced you are, the more you know about the position, the more you can do. You're going to be someone that'll have more opportunities. If you have trouble kicking off, obviously you're going to have less opportunities. If you can't hit the end zone easily, then you're not going to have the same amount of offers because they want somebody that can kick it in the end zone because they don't want people to return it, and they want somebody who can kick under pressure. And some colleges just want a gamer. They just want a guy that maybe his leg's only 45 yards, but he's under pressure, can do it. And, it's a specialized game. A lot of these kickers go to camps by these gurus all over the country, and they compete under pressure with other kickers. And some colleges sign players off of that. Sometimes colleges will have their tryouts just for kickers with the kicking coach. But, if you're a kicker, work on kickoffs. That's not something they want to teach you in college. Work on the onside kick. Work on pressure. Work on the mental part of the game. Some of your best kickers do not do well in college. They just mentally can't get over the pressure. It's tough to kick field goals when the game's on the line. And then some of these guys miss these field goal kicks that win or lose games, and they can't get over it. But again, I hope that spreads a little bit of light to the parents. I know a lot of coaches know this. Maybe even some maybe don't realize how important kicking off is for college. I mean, you could be a high school kicker and kick 3 50-yard field goals and make all three of them and be 10 for 10 your senior year. That's a great resume. But if you can't hit the end zone on a kickoff consistently, then obviously they're not going to be as interested as the one that can't. And that's basically what I'm saying. If somebody can do all three, then you're obviously not going to be as ranked as high as that kid or not as advanced and as polished, ready to go. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to have fun. We're going to talk about TCU and all the great players from Louisiana that are coming back playing for Texas Christian. And we're going to talk about some of these kids to look for when college football returns this year. We'll be right back.
Great news, Louisiana Football Magazine fans. We have renovated our website. So make sure to go to lafootballmagazine.com in order to check out our podcasts, learn more about a parent consultant, read profiles on recruits and coaches around the state of Louisiana, and finally, also start your pre-order your Louisiana Football Magazine copy, North or South version for this upcoming season. Finally, check out our article this week on Oak Grove tight end Dalton Allen. So if you want to get your recruiting fix, go to lafootballmagazine.com today.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the show, whether you're driving around town or in state somewhere. Or you're on your computer. Hope everybody's well and safe. I want to thank everybody in the medical profession for your hard work. I appreciate it, and we've been very blessed so far that, knock on wood, our family's been pretty healthy, and my mom, who's battling cancer, has been able to be healthy, and thank God for that. Prayers to everybody's families out there. But we want to go ahead and talk about instead of our mailbag, we've got our college spotlight team of the week, TCU, Texas Christian College, Texas Christian in Fort Worth, Texas. I did a lot of work for them. About 8 years ago, I was doing a lot of their consulting for Louisiana, and they had flown me up and met with the coach, who's still the coach today. They actually have a coach on their staff from Louisiana that I know, Britt Lemoyne. He was at Neville for a long time with Coach Mickey McCarty. Britt Lemoyne is really their go-to guy for Louisiana for recruiting. Probably will be working with them again in the near future. But there's a lot of Louisiana natives on the team, a lot of guys that are going to start probably for TCU this year. And they've had a lot of Louisiana kids go there that LSU, let's just say it, if they make a mistake, they get some of the better players from Louisiana. They've signed some very good players from the state. John Stevens is on the team right now. If you might remember John Stevens from Logansport High School. He'll be a junior this year coming up. John's 6'5", 215 pounds, played at Logansport High School around Shreveport. Had 11 catches in 2019. Played in all 12 games. This is John's year. John signed at 200 pounds out of high school, was a DN, tight end. He's playing receiver still. This is John's year to break out. This is his year to show everybody he's the great talent that he is. He runs a 4.5 40. Now, keep into account, TCU had a wide receiver drafted high in the draft this past month, and they've got a lot of talent at receivers, so they lost a lot of players. And this is his turn. This is his time. And another kid from Louisiana, this is his year to show everybody that he belongs as a starter. Aldontre Davis from Lutcher High School, a receiver who will also be a junior. Aldontre, 6 foot, 210 pounds, a very physically strong kid. Played in 10 games in 19, had 1 start. Other players, the starting tight end from TCU is from Louisiana, from Parkway High School, Artavius Lynn. This is the guy that's probably going to get drafted, people. 6'6", 265 pounds. He's going to be a redshirt senior. Had 5 starts in 2019. 11 catches for 118 yards. Pretty good amount of catches for a guy that started 5 games. But Artavius Lynn runs about a 4.8 40 at 6'6", 265. That's a name to keep in mind, listeners that love recruiting and love the NFL draft. Artavius Lynn is going to be a guy to keep an eye on from Louisiana, went to Parkway. Some other players that are at TCU. Kelton Hollins missed most of last year. The Zachary native is a center. He looks to regain his starting job at TCU as the center, and he's a great player. He's about 6'3", 6'2.5", about 292. Going to be a senior this coming year. Was all-state at Zachary High School. Kelton Hollins has got a chance to be an NFL guy too. He's a center, true center. He's played a lot of football. And then look, they've got defensively, there's going to be 2 starters this year from Louisiana for TCU, maybe as many as 4. They could have as many as 4 starters from Louisiana. Now, their main 2 starters on defense from Louisiana are Garrett Wallow, who's one of my favorite players. He played at John Curtis. He signed as a safety. He grew into a linebacker. Garrett's currently 6'2", about 230. He's going to be a senior and led the whole Big 12 in tackles last year with 125 tackles. Garrett's another player that will be drafted in the NFL. He runs about a 4.65 40. Very instinctive, a big-time leader. He's one of those guys that you could see going to the Saints, the Ravens or the Patriots, just a, under-the-radar kind of player that's just a gamer. He's just a football player. I was, back in the day when he was being recruited, LSU did not offer him, and I was hoping they would show interest in him because he was a great player, and he's proven it. Led the team in tackles the last 2 years, led the whole conference, the whole Big 12 in tackles. This kid has a chance to be an All-American this year, first-team All-American. They also have a starting cornerback that LSU did not take in the end, or Darius Washington from Evangel Christian that I loved in high school. Was a freshman All-American, and in 2019 had 5 interceptions. That was one of the best seasons in the Big 12, was all Big 12. The reason he didn't get a lot of highly recruiting offers his senior year, he was 5'8", but who cares? He's a football player. He's about 180 pounds. Or Darius is going to play in the NFL one day, another Louisiana native. And then they've got some young linemen that I think LSU fans remember in recruiting. Obviously, Earl Barquette, the one I mentioned earlier, 6'3", 240 DN is going to get a lot of playing time, if not start for TCU this year as a redshirt freshman. And then they signed Patrick Jenkins from John Ehret, who was committed to LSU for a long time. Patrick Jenkins is 6'2", 285 pounds. I think he's an NFL lineman. I think Earl Barquette's an NFL lineman. They've got a lot of NFL Louisiana guys right now. But Patrick Jenkins is in position to possibly start at D-tackle for TCU. If not, he's going to be that third D-tackle, that swing guy that plays a lot as a true freshman. And then they have one more Louisiana native on the team that's going to compete for playing time, maybe start. It's going to be C.J. Caesar from Richwood High School, 5'11", 175, sophomore cornerback that has a lot of ability out of Richwood, out of Monroe, Louisiana. And but I hope everybody enjoyed the show today. I hope everybody has a great Monday. Just a lot of information. I wanted to make sure we covered a lot of stuff, a lot of recruiting this time. And I want to mention, too, speaking of quarterbacks, a lot of people might not realize we were talking about Florida quarterbacks earlier and the 3 Heisman Trophy winners. Shane Gailey, remember the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys? He's the current offense coordinator for the New York Jets. Do you realize he was a quarterback at Florida Gators? Shane Gailey? And then obviously John Reeves was a good one way back in the day too. Jeff Driscoll, Jacoby Brissett, who's in the NFL right now. And, just great quarterbacks, man. Kyle Trask will have a chance to play in the NFL. But Will Greer, right, with the West Virginia, Chris Leak. But none of those guys were great All-Americans in the NFL. I mean, they were great college players. And it's amazing Florida has not had a great Hall of Fame quarterback for the NFL. We hope that you write to us at lafootballmagazine.com. Be sure to pre-order your North magazine and your South magazine for 2020. We're working on it right now. It'll be out early September. Usually it's early August, but because of the coronavirus, just like football season, we've had to push it back a little bit. We're still working on the magazine. Look, fans are going to love it. Parents are going to love it. The coaches are going to love it. This is our 24th preview issue, 24 years. And we'll have our North magazine, our South magazine, and we're really fired up about that. I mean, we've, like everybody else, we've worked through some tough times these few weeks with the shutdown and stayed positive, which we have to do. We just hope everybody's having a great week. And again, thanks for joining us again for another podcast. You're listening to Lee Brecheen, the Sports Scouting Report. We'll see you. We'll see you Friday.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Brecheen.